Gavin is getting cooked for the Ben Shapiro episode. I really can't stress this enough. The left needs to fight back against his run for president with everything we have. He would be an unmitigated disaster and usher in someone like Nick Fuentes as his successor. Yeah, he's going to have Nick Fuentes as his vice president. If this trajectory holds, by the time he runs for president in 2028, if we have elections at all, Nick Fuentes is going to be his VP pick in the interest of Nazi bipartisanship. Here's proof of him standing for nothing.
Was a narrative that was immediately pushed by the Trump administration and Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem that she was a domestic terrorist who was attempting to run over officers with her car and was legitimately trying, not just this officer, but multiple officers. That was the original statement. I said at the time, I thought that was untrue. And then your press office tweeted out that it was state-sponsored terrorism, which, I mean, Governor, I do have to ask you about that. Yeah. That sort of thing makes our politics worse.
Yeah.
No, Ben. What makes our politics worse is a narcissistic pedophile defending Israel dick riding president who only cares about the interests of billionaires, fomenting racialized hatred towards our neighbors, and then seeking the fattest Gestapo agents anyone's ever seen in random Minnesota suburbs. Not calling it terrorism, which is what it is. Shut the fuck up. Why are liberals giving this man a platform and trying to revitalize his career? Do you want to eat Israel's dick that hard? Oh my God, because there's no reason for this racist, white supremacist piece of shit to get any breathing room on mainstream television, on liberal outlets, unless you are CNN and you realize that it's really fucked up that Ben Shapiro lost his audience because his audience realized, oh, if we hate everybody, we hate the Jews too. And they started hating on him. And the reason why you are revitalizing his career is because you want someone to do fascism the right way. And the guy who's going to do fascism the right way, i.e. where you do fascism for everybody but Israel, and you defend Israeli fascism, is Ben Shapiro. Oh my God, I hate this shit. It's so transparent. The only difference between Ben Shapiro and Nick Fuentes is Nick Fuentes hates Jews. Ben Shapiro is Jewish. Nick Fuentes at least says he hates Israel. Ben Shapiro loves Israel. And it's ironic for the Democrats because hating Israel is the 80% position here. So why the fuck are you like, oh yeah, the Republican operative I need to prop up is the one that literally is just as racist as every other neo-Nazi, except he loves Israel. At least if you're going to prop up a Republican that's just as racist as the rest of them, get Marjorie Taylor Greene on board. At least she says Israel and is seemingly more open-minded about social, expanding social welfare, And I don't even want to platform her either. How about none of that, Fucking hell, dude. Who is this for is the question I keep asking myself. Who is this for? And then you get this guy on, and then you agree with him that ICE is not terrorist at a time when the majority wants ICE to be abolished. You got normie Barbaras and Debras in the suburbs sipping wine and going out with a box of Franzia to go yell at the Heil Hitler Brigade. And Gavin Newsom, with all of his ambitions for a higher office, is sitting around being like, you know what? Oh, I'm disavowing myself. I'm disavowing my previous statement at a time when it's at its peak popularity. God, I hate the Democrats so much. It is so unbearable, dude. Establishment Democrats are cancer. Saw a tweet that said, has Newsom ever been grilled by an actual leftist? And the only answer people had was the Lemonade Stand podcast. Yeah, I mean, the Lemonade Stand podcasts are not going to be as contentious as Gavin Newsom. They're not wrong. They're great. Okay. I love those guys. But they're not going to fucking grill Gavin Newsom. They're not going to ask him super hard questions. The only time he's actually been grilled is by Connor Reed's pants, ironically enough. Donor class is torn between running Gavin Newsom for the abundance agenda and bombs over Israel, or running Josh Shapiro on the abundance agenda and support for Israel. If no one is willing to stop this, we should literally run Bernie on life support. I mean, Bernie's going to run on no abundance, Medicare for all, but also support for Israel agenda. So that's great. Yeah, Mecca Bernie rises up and he's still maintaining the liberal Zionist position for some reason. Everyone around him is like, dude, Israel is poisonous. It's cancer. What the fuck are you doing? And Bernie's like, nope, I'm standing firmly on my commitment to the idea of labor Zionism. I went to the compounds. I went to the communes. I'll have you know, the USSR supported Israel at one point. Did you know that? these guys was socialist. I was in the kibbutz. Yes, as long as we replace Benjamin Netanyahu with an opposition figure that is Benjamin Netanyahu 99% of the way, I'm happy. I'm happy with the results. In some ways, he's just as stubborn as you. Yes, stubbornness is a superpower if you have a good understanding of what is happening around the world, and you can still maintain some ideological impurity as well, where you can like change your mind on things. If you're stubborn in the wrong direction, you turn out to be like Bernie on the liberal Zionist hill. And that sucks. Bernie is literally the sock temp duped by National Socialists and refusing to acknowledge it. I don't even know what the full extent of his perspective is on this stuff. But, you know, exactly. I didn't want to say nothing, but, you know, we know an example of a stubborn, prideful person that has, maintained the wrong hill.
I mean, it does.
Yeah.
I mean, our ICE officers obviously are not terrorists.
Yeah.
A tragic situation is not state-sponsored.
Rudy Giuliani's point of view, who made the point as an advocate for sanctuary policy when he was mayor of New York, he said it keeps people safer, healthier, and more educated. Safer in the context that it allows community members to be more likely to participate as witnesses of crime or victims of crime in going after the perpetrators, more likely to get an immunization shot if they're not worried about the nurse turning them over to ICE, more likely to go to school and get educated if they're not worried about the school crossing guard crossing them and ultimately turning them over to ICE. So it's the tool of pragmatism because of the complete abject failure of the federal government. A sanctuary policy is unnecessary if we had comprehensive immigration reform and we had a federal response that was adequate to the task. But in the absence of that, it's grown from the 70s and 80s and 90s, 2000s. And obviously I got here as governor and we had an established.
Glazing Rudy Giuliani's demented? No, it's like saying amnesty is good. Ronald Reagan did it. It's just, I don't have an issue with that messaging because it's still pro-sanctuary cities. If you're going to be pro your own actual policy, utilizing a famous Republican who was an advocate for that same policy is not necessarily a bad thing. Remember the Ronald Reagan mention, because I think if the Democrats move in the appropriate direction, they'll talk about conditional amnesty and they'll bring up Ronald Reagan quite frequently. He was pressed on trans rights too. Ugh.
Why does the parent not have
3 minutes on trans rights? No, thank you. There are certainly cases in which kids are being socially transitioned to school without parents knowing about it. The fundamental question is the question that you're not wanting to answer, which is whether boys can become girls. Yeah, well, I think for the grace of God, yeah. Why is it such a hard question to answer? I don't understand. We're talking about so few people. There's so much hate and bigotry, so much condemnation. It's not an act of bigotry to say a boy cannot become a girl, nor should my children be taught in K through 12 public schools that a boy can become a girl. That's not an act of bigotry. That's an act of rationality and biological simplicity. Why is he trying to revive Ben Shapiro? Because it's the same reason why they're trying to revive Ben Shapiro on CNN. Because he's the right kind of Republican, okay? The Republican that isn't anti-Israel and anti-Semitic. Well, I guess Ben Shapiro doesn't give a shit about anti-Semitism either, as long as they're pro-Israel, let's be real. Gavin Newsom is trying to position himself as like a responsible moderate. It is so crazy. The time in front of us does not require becoming a moderate with the current unimaginably right-wing prospects of a fascist American future. Okay, the time right now is for action, is for bold, radical action in the direction of common sense. Common sense is not firmly planted on the right. As a matter of fact, it's firmly planted on the far left. Okay,